What if the woman serving your coffee wasn't a stranger, but your dead wife? It started with a whisper. 16-year-old Logan Walker glanced up from his menu and froze. "Dad," he said, his voice trembling. "The waitress? She has the same birthmark as Mom, the one in the photo." Across the table, real estate tycoon Ethan Walker looked up and his world stopped. There she was, auburn hair pulled into a ponytail, a kind, weary smile, and just beneath her collarbone, a faint crescent-shaped mark he hadn't seen in a decade. 10 years ago, Claire Walker vanished without a trace, declared dead, buried in memory but never forgotten. Ethan grieved. He raised their son alone. But now here in a sleepy coastal cafe miles from home, a woman who looked exactly like her stood holding a tray of clam chowder and didn't even recognize him. Was she an imposter? A cruel coincidence? Or had the truth been buried deeper than anyone imagined? Stay with us, because what you're about to uncover is a story of love, lost secrets silenced, and a woman who fought her way back from the dead without even knowing she'd ever lived. Dad, the waitress, has the same birthmark as the one in Mom's photo. Those 12 words shattered the illusion of normalcy that Ethan Walker had clung to for a decade. They were spoken by his 16-year-old son Logan as they sat in a sunlit booth at a coastal cafe nearly 100 miles from home. A quiet lunch stop. That's all it was supposed to be. But nothing would ever be the same again. It had been 10 years since Claire vanished. 10 years of searching, of grief, wrapped in silence, of unanswered questions, hanging like storm clouds over Ethan's success. He built an empire in Boston real estate towers that touched the sky, his name etched in steel and glass. But none of it filled the hollow left by his wife's disappearance. No body, no note. Just a silver-framed photo of Claire, her auburn hair glowing in the sun, her radiant smile, and that distinct crescent-shaped birthmark beneath her collarbone. A memory preserved. A ghost never laid to rest. Now in a sleepy cafe called Seaside Lantern in Cape Haven, his son was pointing at a stranger with Claire's eyes. Claire's face. Claire's gesture of touching that same birthmark without realizing it. The woman moved with practiced ease, balancing plates of clam chowder and iced tea, her hair tied back, her smile kind but worn. Her name tag read, Claire Dawson. Ethan's pulse thundered. He barely registered when she set their menus down. His hands shook as Logan whispered again, "Dad, it's her. Look at the mark. Look at her face." Claire Dawson didn't flinch. She offered a polite nod and walked away. But Ethan's world had already tilted off its axis. That night, the storm outside Ethan's Boston mansion mirrored the chaos inside him. He opened the cedar chest he hadn't touched in years. Her scarf still smelled like lavender. Her journal was gone. His fingers trembled as he spread out photos, each one showing Claire alive, vibrant, and always that unmistakable crescent birthmark. That mark, now worn by a woman who claimed to be someone else. The next morning, Logan skipped school. He sat cross-legged on his bedroom floor, surrounded by photo albums and open tabs on his laptop. He knew how to dig. He'd grown up in a digital world. But Claire Dawson yielded nothing. No social media, no school records, no past before 10 years ago. Like someone had flipped a switch and created a person out of thin air. She didn't exist until right after Claire Walker disappeared. Logan couldn't let it go, and neither could Ethan. Meanwhile, in Cape Haven, Claire Dawson jolted awake from a dream where she was falling, always falling, screaming for someone she couldn't name. Her heart raced. The same dream haunted her for years, ever since Maggie Carter, the cafe owner, found her bloodied and dazed by the roadside. Pregnant, lost, and with no memory of who she was, she splashed cold water on her face and stared into the mirror. A stranger looked back. Her fingers rose almost unconsciously to that birthmark again. Something about it always made her anxious. Beneath her skin lived another life, one she couldn't remember but feared to know. Her daughter Sophie knocked gently. "Mom, another nightmare." Claire forced a smile. "Just a bad dream, sweetheart." "Was it the one with the falling?" Claire nodded, brushing back Sophie's hair. The girl was only 9 but carried a soul far older. A math prodigy, brilliant in ways Claire didn't understand. Sometimes Claire wondered, where did Sophie get that from? From her father, from the woman she used to be. That same afternoon, Ethan lied to Logan. He said they were going fishing. Instead, they drove back to Cape Haven. He told himself it was about the resort project that he needed to check the property, but deep down he knew it was about her. They returned to Seaside Lantern Cafe, and she was there, Claire Dawson, moving from table to table with quiet grace. Logan couldn't breathe. Ethan couldn't think. Then it happened. Claire approached their booth again. She smiled, handed them water, and Logan blurted out, "Dad, that's the mark. The same one Mom had." Ethan's head snapped up. For a moment, time stopped. Claire's uniform dipped just enough to reveal that crescent-shaped birthmark. His gaze locked with hers. Her eyes blue-gray, Stormy met his with polite confusion. Then she touched the mark just as Claire used to do when anxious. A chill ran down his spine. Claire stepped back, flustered. "I'll give you a minute with the menus," she said quickly and disappeared behind the kitchen door. Inside, Maggie Carter looked up. "You okay, Claire? You look like you've seen a ghost." Claire stared down at her trembling hands. "That man, the way he looked at me, it was like he knew me. Probably just another Boston big shot with too much time and not enough manners," Maggie muttered. But Claire wasn't convinced. Back at the table, Ethan couldn't tear his eyes off her. Logan whispered, "She touched the mark, Dad, the way Mom used to." "It's not possible," Ethan said, but his voice was hoarse, shaken. Logan leaned in. "What if she didn't die? What if someone made her disappear?" Ethan's mind whirled. The memory of Preston Blackwell, his longtime business partner, surfaced like a shark. Preston had always hated Claire. Said she asked too many questions about the offshore accounts. Ethan had dismissed it at the time. Now he wasn't so sure. He made a call he hadn't made in years. Jack Carter said, a gravelly voice on the other end. "It's Ethan Walker. I think I found her." There was silence. Then Jack replied, "I'll be there in 30. That night, as rain hit the windows of the small rental home in Cape Haven, Claire Dawson stared at a silver pen in her jewelry box. The only thing she had when Maggie found her. Engraved on the side were the letters CW. Mom Sophie asked as she tiptoed in. "Where did I get my blue eyes?" Claire turned slowly. I don't know, but your eyes are green." Claire touched her birthmark again. "Maybe your father, do you remember him?" Number Sophie sighed. "Maggie says some mysteries aren't meant to be solved?" Claire wasn't sure anymore. The storm inside her of broken memories and buried truths was growing. Tomorrow she would go to the library. She needed to know who she really was, even if it meant losing everything she'd built. And across town, Ethan Walker sat in his office staring at a wedding photo, wondering if the woman in that cafe was the wife he buried in his heart a decade ago, or just another cruel trick of fate. "I'm sorry to interrupt the story here, but the mystery is just getting started. Do you think Claire Dawson is really Claire Walker? And if so, why hasn't she come back before now? Let me know where you're watching from, and if this story has captured your heart, please drop a like and send us a heart to keep it going." The woman in the photograph stared back at her. Auburn hair, eyes the color of rain clouds, a gentle smile, and the same crescent-shaped birthmark just below her collarbone. Claire Dawson's hands trembled as she held the old newspaper clipping. It had been inside a plain manila envelope left anonymously at the back door of Seaside Lantern Cafe that morning. No return address, no note, just her name typed neatly on the front. The photo was from a charity event 10 years ago, and the woman in it looked exactly like her. But the name under the photo wasn't Claire Dawson, it was Claire Walker, wife of real estate tycoon Ethan Walker, declared missing, presumed dead. Maggie Carter leaned over her shoulder, her voice tight. "You shouldn't be looking into this. There's a reason we buried that life." Claire turned to her eyes wide. "You knew," Maggie exhaled slowly. "I recognized you the night I found you bleeding on the roadside, pregnant, barely conscious. I didn't take you to the hospital because I was afraid they'd finish what they started." Claire swallowed. "They who?" Ethan's business partner, Preston Blackwell. "I overheard him threatening you days before you disappeared. I was their housekeeper. He fired me after I caught him arguing with you about something shady, offshore accounts, shell companies. You were going to expose him. I think that's why your car went off that cliff." Claire stumbled back a step. Her hands clutched her birthmark as if trying to hold on to something real. "You think I'm Claire Walker, I don't think," Maggie said. "I know." That night Claire couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, images crashed through her mind. Numbers, voices, the squeal of tires, a baby's cry, a man yelling her name. She sat on the floor of her bedroom holding the silver pen engraved with the initials CW, something she'd had when Maggie found her. Now it made sense. Claire Walker, her real name. Across town, Ethan Walker spread out the photos he'd taken of Claire Dawson at the cafe. He compared them to old photos of his wife. The resemblance wasn't just uncanny, it was undeniable. But it wasn't just her face. It was the way she moved, the nervous habit of touching her collarbone when thinking, the rhythm in her voice. And then there was Sophie, a child born exactly 9 months after Claire disappeared, a math prodigy. Just like Claire had been before she gave up academia to pursue law. Sophie even played chess with the same unusual opening Claire used to use to beat Ethan every time. He called Jack Carter again. She's remembering. She's starting to remember. Jack's voice came through firm. Then it's only a matter of time before Preston finds out too. And that makes her a target again. In Cape Haven, Logan had convinced Sophie to show him something personal. You said your mom doesn't remember anything before she came here. Has she ever talked about where you got this? He pointed to the silver pen. She said it was in her pocket when Maggie found her. Sophie replied, it's the only thing from before. Has initials on it. C.W. Logan stared at the pen. His heart pounded. He'd seen this exact pen before in one of his mom's law school graduation photos. His grandfather had given it to her. This was it. Sophie tilted her head. What does C.W. mean? It's her real name. Claire Walker. Sophie blinked. But her name's Claire Dawson. No, it never was. When Claire arrived home later that evening, she found the 2 kids in her bedroom, Logan holding the pen, Sophie crying. Mom, is this true? Are you Claire Walker? Is he my brother? Claire stood frozen in the doorway, her voice barely a whisper. I don't know. But in her gut, something had shifted. A puzzle piece had clicked into place. She looked at Logan's face so much like Ethan's, and at Sophie, her own daughter born from a time she couldn't recall. That night she had another dream, a violent one. She was arguing with a man in a sleek office. He threatened her, said she didn't understand what she was risking, that people like her didn't survive long when they made enemies in high places. She left the office, breath shaking. She got into her car, then headlights. Closer, closer, pushing her off the road. She woke up screaming. Sophie rushed in. Was it the dream again? Claire gasped, holding her daughter close. It was more this time. I remembered something new. The next day, Ethan and Logan returned to the cafe. This time, they didn't come in. They stayed in the car waiting. Claire stood inside, heart racing as she looked through the window at them. She didn't know if she wanted to run or walk straight into their arms. Maggie appeared beside her, worry etched into every line of her face. Don't go out there, Maggie said. We don't know what they want. Claire shook her head. If I'm really Claire Walker, then that's my husband, and that's my son, and I have to know. She stepped outside. As the door closed behind her, Ethan opened his car door and stood tall, uncertain but hopeful. Claire, he said, voice catching. She took a breath. I think we need to talk. I'm so sorry to pause right here, especially when the truth is about to explode. But I promise we're only getting started. Do you think Claire should trust Ethan and Logan? And what do you think Preston Blackwell will do if he finds out she's alive? Let us know in the comments and tell us what country you're watching from. If this story has you hooked, please give it a like and send some love to help us keep going. The cafe was nearly empty when Claire and Ethan sat face to face at a corner booth. The air between them trembled with questions too big for words. He placed a leather-bound journal on the table between them, worn marked with dozens of colored tabs. Her handwriting filled the pages. Claire stared at it as if it might catch fire. I found this in your old jewelry box, Ethan said quietly. You hid it in a false drawer. The last entry was dated the day you vanished. Claire reached out, her fingers grazing the cover. What does it say that you discovered Preston Blackwell was using our company to launder money, that you confronted him, and that you were going to tell me the next morning? You were 8 weeks pregnant. Claire's breath caught. That's Sophie, she whispered. He nodded. You never got the chance. You disappeared that night. Your car was found wrecked near the cliffs. They said you'd lost control. I didn't, she said, voice shaking. I remember now. The headlights behind me. The pressure. I was forced off that road. Claire's hand trembled as she turned the journal's pages. Numbers, names, offshore accounts, and finally her last note unfinished. I never meant to leave you, she said, tears filling her eyes. I didn't know who I was for 10 years, but I always knew I was missing something. Someone. Ethan leaned forward, his voice raw. You didn't leave me. You survived. That's all that matters. Just then the cafe door opened. Logan and Sophie stepped inside. Sophie hesitated at the threshold, unsure whether to run or retreat. Claire opened her arms. Sophie ran to her. Are you really my mom? She whispered. Claire nodded, holding her tightly. I'm Claire Walker, but I'm also Claire Dawson. Both are real. Both love you. Sophie buried her face in her chest. I'm glad you're both. Behind her, Logan stood trying to keep it together. Claire looked up and held out a hand to him. He took it and something wordless passed between them. Recognition, forgiveness, love. That moment was broken by a shadow crossing the window. A black SUV. Preston Blackwell stepped out, flanked by Vanessa, his sister, and Ethan's former fiancée. Claire's stomach turned. They know, Ethan murmured. They're here to stop this. Jack Carter entered from the back door, calm and steady. Let them come. We're ready. Preston and Vanessa entered with their usual smug confidence, but it didn't last long. Claire stood firm and steady. You tried to kill me once. You failed. Preston laughed hollow. You have no proof. Ethan placed the journal on the table. Actually, we have plenty, and we have a witness, Jack added. Maggie heard your threats 10 years ago. She saw you moving items from Claire's wrecked car into your own. And we just uncovered surveillance footage from the cafe showing you following Claire 2 nights ago. She's been afraid ever since. Vanessa stepped back. You told me she died, that she lost control of the car. Preston didn't speak. For the first time, he looked cornered. Officers entered moments later, led by a state investigator. Preston Blackwell. You are under arrest for attempted murder, financial fraud, and conspiracy. As Preston was handcuffed, he looked at Claire. You should have stayed dead. Claire met his gaze. But I didn't. And now everyone will know the truth. Weeks passed. The story exploded in the press. Claire Walker returns from the dead. Whistleblower, wife survives murder plot. The public was stunned. But the Walkers didn't care about headlines. They focused on rebuilding the only thing that truly mattered, their family. Claire legally reclaimed her name, but chose to keep Dawson as part of it. Claire Grace Walker. 2 lives, 1 identity. Her memories didn't come back all at once, but more each day. Sophie's laugh, Logan's old drawings, Ethan's terrible attempts at baking banana bread, tiny pieces returned to her in waves. Ethan stepped down from Walker Properties. Together, they rebranded it as the Walker-Dawson Foundation, focused on providing housing and support for families in crisis, especially survivors of trauma and memory loss. 1 year later, they returned to Cape Haven. Standing near the cliffs where her car once crashed, Claire held Sophie's hand and watched lanterns rise into the twilight sky. Logan stood beside them, now taller than his father, his arm around Claire's shoulder. Ethan lit the final lantern and passed it to her. She whispered into the flame before releasing it. To the woman I was, to the woman I became, and to the family that helped me find my way back. Together, they watched it float upward, light in the dark, just like her story. Before we close this chapter, I have to ask, if you lost every memory of your past, would love still find its way back to you? And do you believe a second chance can make a family even stronger than before? Tell us in the comments what you think of this story. If you loved it, comment number 3. If it didn't quite land for you, comment number 1. And if it was just okay, go with number 2. Let us know what country you're watching from. And if this story moved you, please tap the heart and share it with someone who still believes in second chances.